most in need at the front line of climate change, and the coherence and complementarity of the fund with existing funding arrangements to avert, minimize, and address loss and damage. Last but not least, we want to take up the call of you, Mr. President, that we have to strive at this COP with all our energy to keep the 1.5-degree objective in reach, as this is the most effective way to minimize loss and damage. Thank you.
Thank you, Switzerland. I'd like to now invite Egypt. Egypt, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And once again, allow me to join others in congratulating you on your election. And we have every confidence in your ability and that of your team to lead our work to an outstanding conclusion this year, building on successes of previous COPs. Mr. President, just over a year ago, we were in a very different place when it came to loss and damage. We were all coming out of the Bonn session with a big fight over inclusion of the very issue of funding of loss and damage on the agenda. It was no small task to get the issue on the agenda of COP27, but even exceeding all of our expectations was actually having a decision on funding and funding arrangements and a fund for loss and damage. I take the floor at this moment, in fact, to acknowledge the incredible work done by a number of people that allowed us to be in this position right now. First and foremost, all of the delegations that huddled with us into late hours of the night in Sharm el-Sheikh and showed tremendous flexibility despite very divergent political positions on the issue, but they all came together at the end of the day, allowed it to go on the agenda, and then came together to allow the adoption of that historical landmark decision. And then the work was not done. We still had the TC, and we had two outstanding co-chairs who led the work, and everyone who was in attendance attested to their central pivotal role in leading the work. But I would be remiss if I did not mention the support provided by the Secretariat. They work behind the scenes, but they really are the backbone of the process, and great thanks on behalf of the outgoing Egyptian COP presidency to them for all the hard work they've done. But lastly, to conclude, let me say thanks to you, the UAE, for bringing this all together here in Dubai, for having this very brilliant idea of starting off and giving us all a good vibe and a good moment to start our work on other issues. Lastly, I think our success here goes way beyond just the very central, critical issue of funding loss and damage. It is a testament to the ability of the community, international community, working collectively to come on together and reach an agreement and show that multilateralism is still alive and doing well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Egypt, for your kind words and your intervention. I must though say that it has all started in Egypt, and if it wasn't for your persistence, determination, commitment, and follow-up throughout the year, this wouldn't have been possible. We thank you for your efforts. Appreciate it. Allow me now to invite Vanuatu, please. Vanuatu, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor. As the loss and damage mechanism has at long last been operationalized and adopted here in Dubai at COP28, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the Transitional Committee for their work. My sincere gratitude to the undeveloped countries that have pledged funds to operationalize this very important mechanism, which my country, Vanuatu, among others, brought up 8 years ago. Vanuatu is among the most vulnerable countries in the world. This is personal for me. Imagine twin cyclones landing in a weak Inuit country, or a series of severe tropical cyclones in a year. The pledges mark an auspicious start for countries like mine, where vulnerability and loss and damage is a harsh reality today. We are looking forward to growing the fund to meet the huge challenges that my country and many others are facing in the age of climate crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please invite Philippines? Philippines, you have the floor.
Shukran, Sid Reis. At the outset, since this is the first time that we take the floor, we'd like to thank you and congratulate you for your adept chairing of the meeting. We would also like to congratulate the UAE presidency, the Egyptian presidency, the members and advisors of the Transitional Committee, G77 in China, and the Asia Pacific Group for facilitating the work, and indeed for all of the partners for this landmark approval of the recommendations of the TC. The Philippines itself was part of the TC, and we are aware of the difficulties that arose before we came to this historic conclusion. The decision for the Philippines, Excellency, comes at a most important and opportune time. The Philippines being most at-risk country to climate change. 10 years ago, Excellency, the Philippines was hit by Typhoon Haiyan, and the loss and damage sustained was unbearable. Thousands were silenced forever. And today we take to this floor, speaking not just as one country, but together, clearly, unequivocally, united with a decisive action. The operationalization of the L&D Fund is a historic move forward. It is proof positive of what we can do as an international community if we put our brains together and work together. We can move something from being divisive and transform it into something that's truly unifying. But as we celebrate Excellency, let us remember loss and damage is at the latter end of the phenomenon spectrum. We have to realize and remember the important work that also needs to be done for adaptation and mitigation efforts to be scaled up. We are grateful for the pledges from our partner countries. We hope that this will assist us, and not just the Philippines, but other at-risk countries. What we are doing here, Excellency, is that we're moving forward and working together in moving and transforming countries from states of fragility to agility. And what's more important is that we're working together to make sure that the narrative of climate change and its impacts on peoples and nations becomes a narrative of turning victims to victor. And on this occasion, the Philippines will continue to work very, very hard to reach these goals. And before I end, maybe also thank the UNFCCC Secretariat for the hard work that they've done. Again, we hope that the voice becomes stronger, the unity becomes stronger for the good of the entire world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ghana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, at the outset, we want to congratulate you for your leadership, for taking up this very important role in this critical moment. Ghana, as the chair of the Climate Vulnerable Forum, played a very critical role last year in Egypt, trying to campaign about the essence of, first of all, having an agenda adopted as the Egyptian presidency just articulated, and then also articulated through a young lady, 11-year-old girl, who delivered a sterling statement to the world leaders about the essence of having this fund established. And so today we are very happy to see this success being made and then being celebrated by all. We therefore encourage all parties, especially developing country parties, to actually continue the leadership that has been shown today, so that the objective of the fund to deliver success for vulnerable communities that around the world can actually achieve this objective. We want to take this opportunity to thank everybody and then also say that we are ready to work with your presidency. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Ghana. I'd like to invite Peru.
Señor Presidente.
Mr. President, distinguished delegates, at the outset, Mr. President, we would like to congratulate you on being designated the president of this COP, and we would also like to thank the outgoing presidency of Egypt for its leadership. Mr. President, today we are participants in how, by working together, we can achieve historic results for our peoples, and in particular for the most vulnerable women, indigenous women. Mr. President, now as we begin our work, I am confident that Peru will be supporting this process under your leadership. We are confident that this is a moment of achievement, of success, which will continue over these 2 weeks, bringing us towards our goals. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Senegal, please. Senegal, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President.
D'abord, permettez-moi au nom
At the outset, on behalf of the group of the least developed countries, 46 countries, I would like to congratulate you on your election.
et pour votre leadership.
And also thank you for your leadership, this leadership that you have shown this morning and this afternoon.
Félicitons pour
We congratulate you for your generosity and for the global solidarity which you are showing
cette historique
at this historical moment
sur les pertes et dommages.
on the adoption of the Loss and Damages Fund. We would like to congratulate you
Humanité
for the humanity
en face de nous.
that you are demonstrating here,
Que nous sommes tous
showing
conscients
that we are all aware
de changer
that we
faire
have changed the way we are doing things,
dans le futur.
that we will do this in the future,
Charge
that we are now taking on the needs of the communities most vulnerable to climate change. We're addressing their needs, and this is particularly true for the least developed countries and for the island states.
Nous tenons à remercier
We would like to
au nom
thank you.
le comité de transition
On behalf, we would also like to thank the Transition Committee, the Secretariat, and your team for the hard work that you have carried out throughout this process
répondre à cette demande
to
de justice.
respond to this demand for justice,
Attendent de nous.
which is what our communities
Voudrons dire
hope to see from you.
ne devra pas
This fund
seulement reproduire les modèles de financement
should not simply address financing models, but should guarantee new sources of financing and accessible financing, additional, adequate, and substantive financing
subvention
in the form of subsidies
permettre
to allow us
construire
to rebuild, to address, to rehabilitate our countries following extreme climate events and slow onset events.
Nous espérons que les engagements
We hope that the substantive commitments taken today under your leadership will continue
pendant
tomorrow and throughout this COP here in Dubai,
adéquats
and to ensure that we have the capitalization for this fund, for the loss and damages fund that we need, so that this year we can see this fund respond effectively to the needs of the impacted communities. Thank you.
May I ask Maldives, please? Maldives.
Thank you, Mr. President. As this is the first time that the Maldives is taking the floor, I take the opportunity to thank you, Excellency, for the warm hospitality and to congratulate you on the excellent work conducted under your presidency. The recent significant decision reflects a ray of hope for genuine multilateralism and global dedication. Our journey in this session commences with the historic achievement as witnessed by the adoption and initiation of the operationalization of the fund during the opening of COP28. We place our trust in all to effectively address the need of loss and damage for vulnerable countries like the Maldives. We commend the diligent efforts of the Transitional Committee, whose recommendations have given rise to this crucial fund, particularly vital for nations such as Maldives grappling with the diverse effects of climate change. Acknowledging the pledges made by numerous parties today, we call upon developed countries to put in funds that are necessary to establish the fund at scale. This also marks a pivotal moment for small island development states which have endured economic and non-economic losses for decades. The Maldives has been an advocate for this cause since the very beginning of this process. In the interest of time, I will keep my remarks brief, but emphasize our plea to keep the 1.5 alive. I thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask the EU, please? EU, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, President. To add to the momentum in the room today, I am pleased to confirm a pledge of an aggregate number from the EU and its member states, including Germany, of at least 225 million euros to the fund. As I said earlier, the detail of this and the further pledges, including support for funding arrangements for loss and damage, will be confirmed by our leaders those days. Thank you.
Way to go, EU. Thank you very much. Thank you. I still have 3 more requests. Can I invite Dominican Republic, please?
Yes. Sí. Buenas tardes, señor presidente.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. President.
Es la primera vez
This is the first time that Dominican Republic is taking the floor today, and so I would like at the outset to express the best wishes to you for this tremendous responsibility you have taken on as president of this COP for the next year, and in particular, the fact that you are presiding today, a day which is a day of joy, of great satisfaction for countries all around the world. At the same time, I would also like to thank you for the hospitality that the UAE government has shown to all of us here. Mr. President, the Dominican Republic's president said, one of the poets said in a very famous poem that the Dominican Republic follows the same trajectory as the sun, but as well as following the sun's trajectory, we are also located on the roots of the tropical cyclones, and this makes us one of the countries vulnerable to the devastating impacts of climate change. And for this reason, the adoption of the conclusions of the Transition Committee on the Mechanism and the Fund on Loss and Damage is a milestone event. It is an event of utmost importance. And for this reason, we would like to thank your country for the support that it is showing, and all the other countries which have announced today pledges for this fund. And we also invite other countries to follow this example and to ensure that this loss and damages fund becomes an effective tool so that countries do not have to choose between, as you said in your opening statement, do not have to choose between using funds for rebuilding and for adaptation and leave aside economic growth. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Samuel. Samuel, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Let me firstly congratulate you for the assumption of the presidency of COP28, and also for the hard work in bringing us to this historical juncture today with respect to the issue that is of critical importance to the small island development states, the Loss and Damage Fund. As I'm sure you know, financing for loss and damage is a notion that the Alliance of Small Island States brought to this process 30 years ago. And we are extremely pleased that as a global community, we have finally reached this goal. This day is doubly auspicious due to the immediate commencement of the capitalization process. AOSIS also looks forward to the speedy finalization of the governing board members before we leave Dubai. May I thank the UAE through you, Mr. President, for making the first significant pledge, as well as our partners. This is an encouraging beginning, but there is much work ahead of us. We have left the starting line. However, we look forward to working with you and all our colleagues for swift authorization of the fund. Congratulations once again to you, Mr. President, and your team. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. I see Chile. Chile, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Unirnos a
My delegation would like to echo others in congratulating you on your election, and also to congratulate you on the great success that we had at the start of this session. Chile is particularly pleased with this initiative of this COP, and we are also happy to see the contributions we're also happy with the contribution we've had the honor to make in this process. Chile as leading the transition committee and also as a co-facilitator, working through our Ministry of the Environment during COP27, supporting the Egyptian presidency. We had the honor of making these contributions, and we would like to continue to work to strengthen this new dimension of climate action, which is essential in order to address the needs of the most vulnerable. It also shows the success of multilateralism, and it's a success that should be projected to the rest of this COP's work. Loss and damage is important to address in all countries and all circumstances, given the climate crisis we are going through, and it is urgent to advance on these discussions in order to help countries and the communities that are most vulnerable to the impact of climate change. We would simply like to